D.C., this is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings. Sitting in tonight in Washington, Ted Koppel.
Good evening. Almost overnight, it seems, Washington has become embroiled in a debate over whether and under what circumstances to debate going to war with Iraq. With Congress in adjournment until well after the new year, the question has become whether its leadership should summon the membership back into emergency session. The answer, delivered late this afternoon, came in the form of a compromise. No emergency session. We begin at the White House with Britt Hume.
The president was about to tell his cabinet that despite the troop buildup he ordered last week, his Gulf policy hasn't changed. A reporter tried to ask about Senator Lugar's idea of a special session of Congress on the Gulf.
We're not taking any questions. There's a photo opportunity. Thank you, though, very much for inquiring. There's no questions here. We'll have more to say later on. Thank you very much.
And later on, his spokesman, Marlin Fitzwater, insisted there's no need for any new congressional action because U.S. policy remains rooted in UN resolutions relying on sanctions to liberate Kuwait. Our policy is not to make war, he said. Our policy is to seek a peaceful resolution. And besides, he said, we have been consulting with Congress, we are consulting with Congress, and we will continue to consult with Congress. On Capitol Hill, Defense Secretary Cheney was making sure no one missed that point after he met with House Armed Services Chairman Aspen.
What we're doing is part of the regular continuing consultative process.
Still, the reason for the administration's Gulf policy seemed to shift again today as Secretary of State Baker provided a new rationale, not just stopping aggression, but stopping a recession.
Control by one nation, one dictator, if you will, of the West's economic lifeline will result in the loss of jobs on the part of American citizens.
The administration will be relieved that the idea of a lame duck session of Congress on the Gulf has given way to another round of hearings. They will at least provide a forum for the administration to do what Secretary Baker was trying to do today, frame the possibility of war in the Gulf in terms the public can both understand and support. Britt Hume, ABC News, the White House.
The decision to hold hearings up on Capitol Hill came as something of a compromise, as an alternative to bringing the Congress back into emergency session. Here's a report from correspondent Jim Wooten.
Senate Democratic leader Mitchell was absolutely unequivocal. From now on, he said, Congress must be involved.
It is our firm view that the president has no legal authority, none whatsoever, to commit the United States to war in the Persian Gulf or anywhere else.
Not by himself, he said later, as he and Foreign Relations Chairman Pell and Armed Services Chairman Nunn announced formal Senate hearings on the expansion of American presence in the Gulf and a possible military offensive there.
Certainly when you have a major shift in the mission, the military mission, from one of deterring, defending, and enforcing an embargo to a military mission of preparing for an offensive action to liberate Kuwait, that's a different military mission. It raises a lot of questions.
The hearings are clearly an alternative to Indiana Republican Senator Lugar's call today for a special session of Congress to debate the president's authority. Mr. Bush's support isn't what it was, he said.
I simply note an erosion at the edges of this, and I think it's got to be stopped. And the way you stop it is to make our policy absolutely clear and get the votes on the board of the Congress in support.
But most Republican congressmen don't want another special session of Congress, and most Democrats don't want it either. They'd just as soon protect themselves politically by not being on the record. So in war and peace and somewhere in between, politics is still the dynamic in Washington. Ted?
Thank you, Jim. In a moment, the problems the U.S. faces keeping its coalition together in the Gulf. And on the American agenda, providing drug treatment for a captive audience. And the state of Montana's booming export trade with Japan.
This is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings. Brought to you by Jeep and Eagle.